So much. So welcome everyone, and thank you so much for coming back. I'd like to thank Shanti Deva Center. I'd like to thank Sunny. Thank you so much for hosting so many of the programs. It was nice. We had a little chat before. And so let's make this time as useful as possible for you, for all of you, so that we can be most useful on the planet right now, in our everyday lives, with our family and friends, and in all the activities of our life as coming from the most open heart as possible. This is really think about your purpose for getting together, and can we direct our energy in that way, moving along in a path to enlightenment, hopefully one day. So not losing sight of that, and knowing that, like I talked to somebody earlier this week who said, oh, enlightenment, that's not for me. I'm not going to get there. And I said, why don't you just leave it open? You don't know what will ripen in your mind this life, but using it as a goal, even if it's a long-term goal, to know one day, because you have a good heart, because everybody's fundamentally good, one day you will get there. It's inevitable that you'll get there, honestly. I remember talking to some lamas and they're like, yeah, one day you'll get there. We just have to make the strides, and we have to be patient with sometimes how long the path takes. Right? But for that purpose, to reach that place of enlightenment, we can call it omniscience, we can call it full realization or Buddhahood, whatever term you want to use for that fully open, expanded consciousness that's merged with every good quality you can imagine. And then you act from there. So the real purpose is to act to benefit all living beings. That's why we're on the path, to benefit all living beings, to do that perfectly, unlimitedly, like that. So just take a moment, close your eyes for a moment. Just find that nice posture for the body with the spine as extended as possible. Lightly close your eyes. Just slightly tucking the chin. As you begin to notice your breathing, simple inhalation, simple exhalation. Let those distractions go. You can engage in all of those after the class or tomorrow. Just slowly allow the gaze to go inward, and just everything, the thoughts, the feelings, to move inward, and just notice how your mind is right now. And again, you simply inhale and exhale. You're just noticing your mind. Let any judgments go that you find popping up. Let any of those negative, troubling thoughts, let them float away. Think about the motivation I just mentioned to fully wake up to benefit all living beings. How does that sit with your inhalation and your exhalation? And if you have another motivation, just feel free to bring that up into your mind right now, to direct your energy in that way, hopefully a positive direction. Let's think how we can use this in all of our life's activities. Just this simple observing the mind quietly, gently, how it can seep into our daily life's activities. So, for instance, you talk with a friend who has a major life-threatening illness. How does that sit in your mind? You're on the phone with them, let's say. You're at lunch with them. And here we are. We breathe in, we breathe out. What would you like your response to be while you're engaged with them? How would you like to be? You're not exactly sure how you want to be? So give yourself a couple more inhalations and exhalations. And you can do it right in the conversation with them, because for the most part, they're probably talking about what's happening. So it's a great way to practice active listening, a great gift to give them. Put yourself in the situation and just notice you're breathing in, breathing out, listening. Am I hearing everything they're saying? Or am I rushing to speak? Maybe they just need me to listen. Can you notice as much as possible? Can you be there with them in the space, keeping your heart open rather than, I can't wait to get off this call. Can't wait till the lunch is finished. This is so uncomfortable. Let's explore that this is so uncomfortable. Let's explore that, because many things in life are uncomfortable. That's samsara's nature. So here comes the thought. This is so uncomfortable. I breathe in. I breathe out. And maybe I do that again. Maybe I think, This is life in samsara. This is how it is sometimes. I wonder what their experience really is for them. Just stay there in your discomfort. We practice just being with the discomfort quietly, gently, with ourselves, with others. Bring up a discomfort in your life right now, big or small. Just bring it to mind. Work with that discomfort for a moment. And just using this mindful awareness about the discomfort. You don't have to fix it right now. It's not the point. I'm not going to shut down. I'm not going to push it away. Just going to be there with it. And here's a couple things to add to that. It always changes. That's its nature. Change is the one thing you can count on. So even this discomfort will change. Our mind is changing every moment. And you're aware of that because some days you're in a good mood. Other days, not in such a great mood. It's always changing. Look at your discomfort through the nature of change. You may be afraid the discomfort will get greater. What can you do about it? You'll tend to it with the best tools you have at the time and deal with it. Sometimes we just want to work with the mindfulness. And here's another part to think about with this discomfort, because we have so many discomforts in our world, in our minds. You inhale, you exhale. I am good enough. Fundamentally, I am good enough. So it's not that I'm complete and not working on myself to become more complete. But every moment we're good enough. We have Buddha nature. You have that seed of awakening in you that you're working on to remove the veils of obscuration. You're polishing the jewel. That's the best you can do. And we do it the best we can. The best we can. So you're worried about the discomfort getting graver, getting more intense. I am good enough. So when I have time to tend it and need to deal with it, I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it the best I can in a way that will make it more comfortable for you, is with as open a heart and mind as possible. Think about that and how it relates to your discomfort. Dealing with it with as open a heart and mind as possible. So please relax and slowly open your eyes. A little bit from the exercises last week that Sunny sent out to you. We were talking about returning to the motivation. So thank you. Some of you corresponded with me that, you got your motivation, going when you feel imbalanced, training yourself if you can. And we were talking about what's your relationship to freedom. How free do you feel now? And what's keeping you from true freedom? We had a little bit of play the game of how much time can I spend in the next hour focusing on others' needs more than myself. And we were talking about right speech, one of the noble Eightfold Path that we were starting to work on, and gratitude. So there were a lot of things. So I'm just curious, maybe you never thought about these things again. Maybe, any experiences, anything that worked for you, anything that you're like, nope, never thought about it again. Anything that help you get to your practice, anything people would like to say, feel free. How's your freedom going? Everybody pretty free? We're relatively free, right? You want to be freer, right? So if anybody wants to put in the chat or unmute, feel free if you have a couple comments or something. Is it helpful to send out the notes or?
Yes.
Just curious, is that helpful? Okay, super.
Very helpful.
Wonderful. And how's it going with, what about the gratitude practice? And that was really what I called a 4-step method for overcoming challenges. That was just in general. I mean, we have all these kind of lists like that, right? Anybody get that going and find it useful? And one example I give, these are all for really everyday life. Like an example, we were just talking about this as we started to come on Zoom tonight, is the unfortunate earthquake in Turkey. It's just a horrible tragedy again. And this is samsara. And we've had horrible tragedies before. I mean, there's one going on, Ukraine, right? And there'll be ones again, unfortunately. My understanding of samsara. So it's kind of, so at one point, talking with somebody yesterday, I think about, and there was something going on for them about, dealing with an adult child that's okay, but it was just kind of the standard way, sometimes adult children communicate with their parents, and they're, in our culture, we have so much, so there's less gratitude. And they were just talking about that. And then somehow I just, the earthquake kind of popped in my head, and I said, yeah, and how about, like, maybe you want to remind your kid of what were they, if they were buried under rubble now and having to text you that they're, like it just changes the whole perspective, changes the whole perspective. So the gratitude is that I'm so glad I'm where I am, that I'm not under a pile of rubble or living in, well, actually, I don't really know. I don't know about this cabin, whether it would blow down, but the thing is, it's only one little structure. So if it did blow down, I don't know if the materials would kill me, like having a whole building come down, a 8-story building or something come down on my head, like it's different. So I'm grateful that I've lived in safe places, relatively safe places. Think about that. It's always a way to reframe the situation like that. So any comments anybody cares to say?
Well, one of the things that I kind of experienced last week after, the kindness, and I had a situation where I had to go to a doctor, and I always dread that. I try to avoid it at all costs, but on the way there, instead of going at it with a lot of anxiety, in traffic, I sat at the light and I looked at the sky. It was a winter sky with kind of purple and blue, and I enjoyed that. I got there and I decided I would just, try to be kind to everyone and take the focus off my anxiety. And it turned the experience into a completely different experience than I've ever had there. And from the valet guy that took my car, to the nurse who remembered I'd been there with my mom, the doctor was super nice. I mean, everything was just so different. And I think it was because I was so different.
So I put Jane there to say that, actually. I planted her there. And no, but see, this is the key. This is the taking the 1 hour of focus off of myself. It's hard to do because we're so patterned to thinking about ourselves. Thank you so much, Jane, because I've had that experience myself so many times. And I know some of you that are in this class, and I know some of you do that as well, where you switched it, your mind's off, and it just completely broadens your perspective. And the whole situation can invert. So instead of my anxiety, all you have to do is be focused on everybody else, and the anxiety is just not there anymore for the most part. It's extraordinary. So again, please try it. Keep trying it. Fantastic, Jane. I mean, it's very moving, but it's really the way bodhicitta works.
Yeah, I'm a believer now.
Yeah.
It made such a difference.
It is. And some of you heard the story of me after the retreat, in 2021, doing a lot of meditation on bodhicitta, and going to the grocery store and having this experience where basically I got everything I wanted because all I was thinking about was the other people in the store. And I'm not any great practitioner, but just taking the focus off of what I needed. This is what I want. I'm going to the store for me, and really looking at all these other people. And I ended up just having a much more, this is a very mundane activity, going to the grocery store. It's like, but we have all these mundane things, or, you got in the car and you drove, you're on the subway, all these little things, you're passing through your kitchen, talking to your partner, you don't even, and it's just the more you put the focus, the other, even if I have a worry as I'm passing through the kitchen, or, just different way to reframe that. This person, today I just happened to talk to 2 good friends about their adult children that they're really struggling with. One is just gripped with anxiety, and he's really kind of soul searching just talking about other, getting all the things in line and what he's going to do, but very much thinking about all these other kids that struggle with anxiety, not just being focused on his daughter like that. So I think it gave him a broader perspective like that. And he and his wife are quite spiritual, so I think they realize there's all these like he said, I want an integrative path to work with her, like not just drugs, not just therapy, but exploring, something broader. And I thought that was really brilliant, a brilliant way to, experiment, to try, and main thing, to be open. to be open, and the gratitude to find that, like, and I kept saying to him, I said, well, your daughter has a great foundation. She's got great parents, comes from a great family. So there's that, where there's so many people, just, we have a bit of an, I'm not sure the politically correct word right now. California starts all these PC words. And so we had homeless was a word I've used for years. Now it's unhoused, I think, is the word people are using out here. So, but in any event, we have a substantial population in Santa Cruz, which isn't a big place. And I'm often coming in contact, if I go into town, with some people. And there's some people, as you know, on the streets that they've been on the streets for years and they're mentally ill. And so that effect of people of like, okay, your daughter suffers from anxiety, or your daughter's an addict, or your son's an addict, and yet based on your family and your good heart and the means to provide for them, they're not on the street. And yet these people, and I need to see the weathered approach to life they have, and they're almost too far gone because they just haven't had a home, haven't had housing or shelter, so it's so hard to see that, to think about, can you bring somebody back from that and kind of give them the grounding. So there's always an opportunity. It's always so gratitude, and then cherishing others. So keep working on those things. Keep working on those things. And so here's another thing I'm going to add now, this 4-step method I mentioned. I'm going to give different little, tools, techniques, practical things as well as us talking about Noble Eightfold Path and 10 non-virtues. Emptiness I want to talk about too. Is the second step I'd kind of go to is something called observe and decide. Observe and decide. Okay. So this was our, the early meditation we just did. And I love this sometimes, as I was in these conversations with people. I also have a friend in 2 weeks is having major heart surgery in New Mexico. And what they had to go through of the, as you know, the healthcare system, but they also live in a remote area. So till he could figure out, should we go to California and get it done? And how's our insurance going to work there? And where are we covered here? And that process, when you're concerned that you've got like an aneurysm that they told you may rupture any moment. So that's scary. And they're scared, he's very scared. So again, can I just, talking to them, observe and just watch the excitement in my mind when something doesn't go well, the agitation, and then I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out, and then I'm thinking about gratitude. I'm thinking about them. I'm actively listening. We have all these little things. You don't have to add them in all at once, but I'm just giving you different options but the thing is, the more we practice with it, then some of them come automatically. Of like, so when you face a particular challenge, can you take a step away from the feelings that start going? Once I start like a deeper breathing in, deeper breathing out, then all of a sudden it's like, I think I need to make a plan about what I'm going to do. Like I'm so full of anxiety about this, so it's important to feel your feelings. That's important. Okay. So, and when you're deciding how to act, you want to check in, like, and some of us know what I mean, like when I've made a decision, and many of you've made a decision, and sometimes when you made the decision, it just felt right. It was like, yeah, I feel so great. I feel so relieved right now. And I'm not going to second guess the decision. It's like, I'm going forward. This is what I know I need to do. And I've thought about it, and I've really looked at all my options. I didn't make a rash decision. I really weighed everything, discussed, got the tools I needed. And then I made a plan of, so I'm observing, and then I'm deciding. Observing and deciding. So I felt all the feelings I'm going to feel. Now I need to get something moving. Okay. And you want to try to be as objective as possible. So be cautious again, who you might consult in your decision. That's just practical. And it's wise. Who do I want to consult? Because we have drama kings and queens in our lives. And sometimes that's not the kind of people I want to consult, where they're hysterical about what's going on, or people that have an agenda, people that have a bias, like that. So again, a little observe and decide. Okay. And then the next step I would layer, the third step is face your fears and act. Face your fears and act. Okay. So taking the action is a big step. Like I've decided I'm going to take the action. Okay. And it's likely that a big part of whatever you're facing feels like a challenge because I've been afraid. So it feels like a bigger challenge. Feels like a bigger challenge. And, just try to recognize that. Okay. And then can I kind of analyze a little bit? What was I really afraid of in the situation? What was I really afraid of? Okay. And then I'm going to act to try to alleviate that fear, to figure out, is that a situation? I had a situation when I moved here, Land of Medicine Buddha. Somehow when the decision got made, I knew it was the right decision. I knew I had to go for it. I didn't have any question about that. Made the plans. It was difficult. It was difficult leaving this little pandemic bubble in Philadelphia. It was my childhood home, right? It was difficult leaving that safety where I was living for God knows, for several years I was living there with my father, and then after he passed, and so it was really home in many regards. And so and then I somehow already knew that it was going to be difficult out here. Pandemic, I'd heard about the center, what was going on. A lot of our centers have struggled through the pandemic, as you know. This isn't any really unusual situation. So, and I think on the spiritual path, this is something to consider for any of you, is those of you more spiritually inclined, and if you're on an alternative path, let's say, at times, and even if you're not, that sometimes the dark night of the soul, as we call it, I'm not sure that's the right wording, but when you go into those deep crevices, where there's something that has to get unleashed, something you're going to discover about yourself, it's okay, but there's going to be difficulty. So that was one of these periods because I just came out of an easy ride. I felt like I was kind of coasting. And for me, my spiritual path is not about coasting. It's just not my life. That's not the way I do my life. Some people it's okay, but I've never kind of done that. I usually engage in the challenge. I'm up for the challenge, right? So I remember my dad telling me years ago, the greatest challenges in life offer the biggest rewards. So somehow it stuck with me that I'm not afraid to. So again, like I knew it was going to be a big challenge. And you know what it was? It wasn't any big surprise. It was just a matter of how do I want to deal with it? For a while, I wasn't really happy about it. I remember and later I kind of looked back and I went, oh God, you were complaining so much. Like, can I change that nature and stuff? That was just, a coping mechanism. And then I figured out kind of what I need to do. I started implementing. A lot of it was self-care techniques. That helps you choose kindness, self-care techniques, so that I could have balance in my life. And how can I take care of others if I wasn't taking care of myself? I'm still implementing them with balance. I do my work really hard. I do my work really well. And then I'll do some kindness to myself, usually some exercise, walk along the beach. I actually today I went out for a walk. Our coast got devastated, and I was just walking, and I was just thinking, like, there's Turkey and then there's the Capitola coastline here. Both are a mess. One was a mess with no life, life lost like that. But people's businesses were gone, just gone, and even for me in my mundane thing, I was just like, oh, there's the pier that I've been out standing on with Rinpoche so many times while he does these animal offerings and these blessings for all the sea creatures. How many times have I stood on that pier next to Rinpoche and it's gone? Now it's gone. Change, just change, right? But loss of life is a big one. Loss of life is a big one when people get killed from something. But then we learn to deal with it. We figure out how to help. So I just keep my heart open, thinking about them. With Turkey, people go, what can you do? You can give money to aid agencies. Some people go over and volunteer. Some people work this is what we were doing with Ukraine. People were sending packages from the Philadelphia area. Like there's many things like that, so there's different things, people taking in refugees and things like that. And then you think about karma. We have to think about karma. And so one of the things, I guess, is, so the area that it hit, as Turkey and the Syrian border. And then again, who's in the news? Is this the city of, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Aleppo in Syria, right? Well, we heard about that place in the Syrian war because it was destroyed. So look at the karma of that place. They again suffered all this earthquake damage. Can't get a leg up, like Haiti, another one. So again, you think gratitude. I don't tend to park myself in places like that. How fortunate that, I'm able to live in places that are well maintained and building codes, and fortunately have had relatively safe housing to live in, like that. So, you think about these places, they're hit again and again and again. And so you do what you can do, and then just keep, can you keep yourself balanced in that process? So those are just, again, some of these techniques. Practice gratitude was one. Observe and decide. Face fears and act. It's really helpful to analyze your fears. Like, I've talked to this daughter of my friend, the daughter who suffers from grave anxiety, really kind of crippling anxiety for many years. So she came in with karma of already this as a child. You see it in kids, like, it's not because her sister and brother don't have it. They're not like that. She was going to nursery school, clinging to her mother. Don't leave me here. Sister and brother weren't like that at all. They ran off across the room, skipping, oh, kids, the playground or something. So she obviously came in with these other seeds, right? I've talked to her about analyzing what you're really afraid of. Getting clear. Some people aren't clear on what they're really afraid of. Or it could be change. It could be death. It could be the unknown. These are big ones for people. What can you do about it? Change is a constant. So what do? We get used to the small changes. I've mentioned this before. I practice with the small changes, getting okay with that. So when the big waves come, the big changes, I have some experience dealing with it. Knowing samsara's nature, knowing this is a wave, it's a ride again. We are going to lose people. I'm sorry. We're going to lose loved ones. That's the nature of reality, like that. It's very, very sad, but I don't need it to topple me, because here's the bigger heart again is, what about all these other beings? I want to stay open to help them with their grieving and their sorrow as much as possible. So by my having an experience of that, hopefully I'll have a bigger space to help them. That's how we can use it positively. But you've got to get under and analyze. You're peeling back the onion constantly. Because again, some people talked about anger in other classes. I'm so angry, I'm so irritated, this guy was so annoying. And you find that under that is sadness. And under that is like, I'm afraid I'm losing control. I won't have control of something. So when you peel back, you see there's different layers in that. And it's not just that the guy's a jerk. It's easy to say that, but it doesn't benefit anybody. It doesn't help you keep your mind open. So here's the fourth step of this method about overcoming challenges, something else you can think about. And I'm going to give you more of these as well, but this is just a little 4-prong. Accept and let go. Accept and let go. This is hard. You've done these other 3 steps, let's say. Accept where you are now and what you have, okay? And who you are. This is your life, okay? And while this life is temporary, we all know that, accepting it will help you to that there's ups and downs. When I said just observe your mind in the beginning, just observe your mind gently, quietly. I'm just looking at my mind, because some days my mind's really upbeat and easy, no problem. Other days, not so great, okay? So I know that's just how it is. So when it's not so great, I can reset a motivation, think about others. I can do nice things for myself. I can take a rest if I need to, because that's usually why I might be agitated or something if I am, okay? So accepting that helps me let go of the stress, anxiety, fear. It helps me less label it stress, anxiety, fear. Isn't that what we do a lot? We solidify a thought. So my meditation practice is one of the best ways to learn and practice that acceptance, to let go, to learn to let go. And think about the thoughts solidifying. We have words we say to ourselves, I'm really stressed right now. And we had a thing years ago at one of the centers, you all know this, we had like the staff that would be like, I'm burnt out. I'm just burnt out. She's so burnt out. So it's just words. And everybody would catch it. And we'd have things like, oh, I'm really overwhelmed. Oh, he's so overwhelmed. It's so overwhelming. And I loved it where one of my friends cut through just to play on words, and he had accepted a new job. I think he actually became director of Land of Medicine Buddha many years ago. I remember he got the job, and we were all there meeting, or so there was and somebody said, Mark, are you overwhelmed? And he said, no, right now I'm just whelmed. Right. So again, play on the words that we stress, anxiety, fear become, and people. So she, my friend's daughter is, that's her mode. Like she's an anxious person. She's so stressed out. She's not. She's a lovely person. I find her to be a lovely person. She just has a lot of stress in her mind. That's her experience. A lot of stress. She's had it from a young age. For me, she's had it in past life. She came in with it, with those seeds. Like that. So the more she can interrupt it, the less imprints she's going to make. Because right now she's in her 20s. So the less imprints are going to carry on. So maybe when she's 60, if she lives to be 60, she can get a handle on it now, which I'm really glad they're helping her to do that. So accept and let go. So practice those this week if you can. Again, gratitude, observe and decide. Okay? Make a plan. Face your fears and act, and then accept and let go. Is there a question?
Yes. How do you really do that, to accept and let it go? Do you do it through meditation or? Usually,
I'll be on my cushion thinking about a certain situation. Like if something's gripping you, or you just keep noticing you're kind of just irritated at somebody, or this is a situation. I know that one example I give is when I came here, there's a certain mode of operation, a Land of Medicine Buddha, but the center had so many struggles in the pandemic that there really wasn't a clear system like that. So I just noticed how the ups and downs, those waves of not having a clear system, and so I would suggest something, and then some people hear it and some people didn't, and then some people moved in a different direction. And so after a while I realized, okay, this is just a karma. Suggest whatever they want to go in a different direction, or these people want to go in a different direction, but people kind of like this idea. All we can do is try to work harmoniously together. That's what I say on my cushion. I kind of look at a situation when I get irritated and go, well, this is so irritating. It's so clear to me what they want to do. But then I'd sit on the cushion and go, my way isn't always the best way. It's just simply one way. And I've already suggested it twice now. They heard me. They don't want to do that. Okay, I'm okay. It'll take longer on one level. It could take longer for things to happen, or let's observe, I might be wrong. I've been wrong many times before. I could be wrong again. And let me just observe and let's see what happens. But in the meantime, I have other work here I can do. I'm going to focus on that. So a lot of that, Jane, I would do on my cushion, where I'm analyzing, watching the frustration and then going, okay, so what do you want to do? What do you want to do about it? You've suggested. You don't need to suggest again. I can let that go. And I really did let it go. I didn't feel like, well, they're not listening again. This is what you need to do. I just went, there's a group of people, they're intelligent people, and they're very, very dedicated. And they have very good hearts. Like I like all these people. But I also acknowledge we have a karma together. And I'm part of the karma. I'm not like outside of it looking in. I'm part of this dance. It's like a family. We are a family. So again, with your families, you make a plan, and some people don't want to listen to you, and they go, no, we're not having dinner at that restaurant tonight. We're going to go over here. And you go, but I want to eat at that restaurant. It's better. And they go, but we don't want to go there. What do? Go to the restaurant by yourself? Or do you join your family and go, I think I'll go with my family and I'm going to let it go and we're going to have a great dinner? So what I did is just patiently, but I really did let it go. I wasn't just harping on people and kind of, yeah, you didn't listen to me. I just kind of went, I'm watching this dance. And then, it is funny because there's a couple things I suggested, and 10 months later, another person pops up and goes, you know what we need to do? And it's the thing I suggested. But the thing is, I accept that because the center has to have a karma to be able to move in certain directions. So you have to step back and look at the big picture. So on my cushion, I'm over and over analyzing, and every time I notice irritation, I'll go, so what's the problem? Oh, it's that. Well, I've had times I didn't listen to people when I was running centers, made mistakes, and later came back and went, you had a really good idea 10 months ago. Sorry, I didn't listen to you. And it's all, so I just look at the karma and then gently I suggest what I think might be helpful. And then I just let it go. And it's interesting because now I suggest stuff and people are listening more and kind of saying, oh yeah, let's try to do that. And I'm more patient too. I'm not kind of I think in the beginning it was quite traumatic here for everyone. So we were very urgently trying to fix it. And I realized things take time to fix. So I've kind of relaxed, but my meditation practice is where that's fueled that. So what I'm doing, Jane, also just in general for everyone is I got the meditation practice, I've mentioned this before, to support and be the buoyant cushion. So when I'm back in the next meeting with some of these people, if it's not going the way I think it should go, if they're not, whatever that tape is, whatever that recording is I can more gently kind of watch my mind in it and go, oh, look, you're kind of tightening right now about that. I'm just saying this in the meeting. Oh, feeling a little tight. And then breathing in, breathing out. I can just suggest these are good people. We all want the same thing for the center. We want the center to thrive. And if the karma, it takes us in a different direction, I'll just figure out if there's something beneficial I can do in that direction with these people to help. And they'll, and figure out a good way to work together. And that's sometimes the best you can do, right? So kind of that process. Okay, so let me go back to, or go ahead to.
I just have a question about what you just said. Would you say that has to do with like attachment aversion, like whether you can let go and just give it up, or there's something in you that my way is like the right way? How do you,
Sheila, are you saying, is that related to attachment and aversion? Or how do you let go when you feel, part of it is, again, I think just that trajectory I mentioned of, I have to do some of the work on my cushion. I have to get down there and look at my mind. It's not out there. It's really not. They would mirror back to me. And we've had all those situations where this, I can say, this person's really irritating. She's a jerk. He's this, but none of that really fixes it. It just further it feels like it creates a karmic wall for me of more obstacles. Once I come back and I'm like, and the whole time I was kind of saying, I know this is my mind. And sometimes I'd say, and it's really ugly right now, like this is, but again, I do believe I created it for myself, that we create our situation. And that's Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Everything comes from the mind. That is Tibetan Buddhism. Everything comes from the mind. So if you're noticing the aversion or attachment, or I need to have it this way, first look at the eye. Look at the eye, look at the sense of self that needs to have it that way. And I need to be right. And they need to listen to me because my way is the best. I had this little running recording in my head is I was the only one of this group of people that had ever run a residential retreat center, the FPMT. 2 of them I ran successfully. So then I'm like, okay, so nobody really wants, everybody was happy when I got here, but nobody really wanted to hear the advice, but it's just, then I realized karma number 2. So you're going back to, it's from my mind. I've done this before to other people, right? Karma's at work. So the pushing and shoving, what I'll ask myself through analysis, what can I do? What can I do with a good motivation? Again, with motivated by compassionate wisdom. How can I be at this meeting with compassionate wisdom? How can I serve on the board with compassionate wisdom? How can I train this staff person with compassionate wisdom, or hire somebody with compassionate wisdom, or inform the acting co-director with compassionate wisdom instead of, what I think is right, and I'm better than you and I know better? Because that postures and that makes separation. But how can I really come from a loving place, connecting with their heart, with their goodness, their Buddha nature? That's when it got juicier for me, and that's when it got more peaceful for me. When I let go, I'll put it this way, I let go of the struggle, the negative struggle, which was all about externals. It was everybody else. It was everybody else. And the more I let go of that and really started to do that practice, it is my mind, but really integrating that it is my mind, not just saying it. I think in the beginning I was superficially kind of saying, suffering through it. And so I think, does that make sense, Sheila, of sitting in meditation and really analyzing? So when I'm with the person, I can come out and meet them as a whole being, whole conscious, kind being as possible, to connect wherever they're at. And then, you know what? You give it your best shot. It's not going to go perfectly because it's samsara. And we've had some interesting dances here with people. I've watched the weaving of, when you have a community, a Buddhist center, and a lot of people project things onto Buddhist centers. Those of you involved with Shantideva can tell me, but it's not a residential center, but people project on, Buddhist centers, everybody's peaceful and they get along, right? Right, Sunny and Sheila and Peggy, who's worked with centers, and Linda, right? It's all like that at centers, right? Not, right? We're Buddhists, but we're not Buddhas yet. So Buddhist means you're a human being with delusion, and when you bump up against another human being with delusion, problems can arise. That's the nature of it. That's the reality. And people don't always want to hear that. They think Buddhist centers, everybody should be perfect. And no, we've done this in incredible dance. The alliances keep shifting. Like I've had 3 people kind of at war with me here, not at war, but disagreeing, kind of, and then, you come back 2 weeks later and they're like, every idea I have, they're like, Amy has the best idea. It's great. And I was like, what? Last week, it just shifts. It's just karma, and it's your mind. It's my mind. And so you just keep trying to show up and watch the aversion and attachment. Notice the I that gets activated, the sense of yourself that is activated there. Analyze that. That I doesn't exist at all. Doesn't exist at all. No inherent nature to that I. I'm not talking about the mere I that is sitting there in your block, listening to the teachings, maybe taking notes, thinking about this. That is a conventional existence of you that you have to take care of. But the strong sense of yourself, invested, I'm right, they need to listen to me, this person's wrong, I can't believe they're not listening again. This is the best thing they should do. Why don't they do it? That I doesn't exist at all. So it doesn't mean as the mere I, as your conventional self, that you don't suggest what you think could be helpful, but do check your motivation. And then you can suggest, and then you let it go, and they'll do whatever they need to do. You can't control them, right? So Sheila, I don't know if that helps speak to your issue or.
Yeah, no, it does help. I mean, but letting go is really hard.
It is really hard. And so again, when you come back to letting go, that's why the mindfulness practice I find really helpful. Sometimes, and there's many ways to do mindfulness practice, but sometimes it's the simple, inhalation, exhalation. There's discomfort, when we're not able to let go, there's discomfort. That's life in samsara. Or it could just be inhalation, exhalation, this sucks, or I'm uncomfortable, like that, or I'm so sorry that I'm having so many challenges with this person. And that's life. I forget who I was just talking with. somebody else, a lot of people with adult children, it's a challenge, and something about the adult child not accepting that, like, it just expecting something to always be positive and wonderful, and it just, it's like, the parents never said that to them. I mean, this is life on the planet. So kind of, I think the father was saying, was she too sheltered? Did we shelter her to, but just saying, this is what it's like on the planet, that there's accidents that happened, and people get divorced, and people get sick, and so just kind of layering it. But there's also a lot of good things, so making sure you focus on the good things every day, making sure. That's why I like to go and walk in nature. I mean, I live in nature. It's beautiful here, redwood trees, and then redwood trees, I can hike here, or I like to go out and then I can go to the ocean. It's like the ideal situation, just to look something outside of my mind. And if you have thoughts, I don't have so many ruminating thoughts anymore, but having thoughts coming up, and just let them go. I'll be like, this is not the time for the ruminating thoughts. If you have ruminating thoughts, you're a worrier, you have depressed ruminating thoughts, whatever they are, you have angry ruminating thoughts, attached ruminating thoughts. We have a lot of them, right? It's not that I don't have any ruminating thoughts, I do, but not of dealing with them for years, they're less ruminating. But then what happens is my walking time in nature, or your time to exercise, or your time listening to music, or your time having dinner with your partner or something, right? That's not the ruminating thought time. That's time to be with eating dinner with my partner. Or that's my time to be walking on the beach, looking at looking at the ocean, really seeing what's out there, looking at, and also just, the coast is so destroyed that, oh my God, I mean, there's piles of wood. I don't even know how the wood, massive logs that washed in. I don't know where they come from, really. I guess logging, but I never figure out, how does it get into the bay? And then it's just like always a mystery to me of where is it coming from? Massive, massive logs. And so there's actually the pier that got destroyed. They gathered the wood washed up. So they have that in a pile right at the end of the pier now, where it used to be, where most of it was. And it's piled up, and then the hot sun on the wood. So because I'm from the East Coast, some of you will appreciate this, okay? For me, it smells like Atlantic City, okay? I can't help it, but I grew up as a kid, we would go to Atlantic City, the Jersey Shore, and we would just go. When I was a kid, it used to be kind of a nice resort place. People would go, they kind of dress up to go to Atlantic City, if you can imagine. I'm really dating myself, right? Some of you know this experience, but so as a small child, we would go, and the boardwalk, there's a boardwalk, it's all wooden, as some of you know, and with the hot sun, it has a certain smell. And so I was walking by it with a friend the other day, and I said, oh, wait, just stop for a minute. I just had to take in the olfactory of a childhood memory, very strong. And I said, oh, and she didn't know Atlantic City, but, I just said, oh, it smells like something from my childhood, going to the beach and having this smell. So again, when you're doing that, what about the mindfulness to be present with that experience of what you're doing? So I'm not here with my ruminating thoughts. I'm present right now with this activity that I'm doing to lessen my ruminating thoughts. I'm running. Let's say you're getting exercise. So you go out for a run. You're walking in the woods, walking with a friend. You're babysitting your niece. And you're there doing that and being present with that. And, I inhale, I exhale, and you watch ruminating thoughts sift in, but instead I'm going to, and you watch them come in, and thank you, I'm taking a little break from you. And if you need to, I mentioned this before in other classes, schedule the time for those ruminating thoughts. Meaning some of the ruminating thoughts you might feel, I need to do something about them. Like there's something I need to take care of. I need to have that talk with her. I need to sort that thing with the apartment and the job, and I need to get to that. I need to call those people to do it. And it's kind of procrastinating, and I need to do it. And if because it keeps coming in and it kept me up last night, and whatever your thing is, you can say that. And so, but what you do is then schedule the time to deal with it. And so what'll happen is if they're negative ruminating thoughts that are just agitation in the mind, no good, it's different if it's a business thing where you're like, I just need to call that list of people. If they're just the negative worried thoughts, depressed thoughts, hostile thoughts, attached thoughts, and you scheduled Thursday at 4 p.m., that's when you're going to deal with them. When Thursday at 4 p.m. comes around, often you're just not feeling that way. So let it go. You can have your little buzzer go off, and there's the thing on your calendar, worry, whatever you call it, right? But you don't really feel very worried at that time. That's where you see it lessening a bit. So that's one technique to get you out of that kind of state of mind. There's many things like that. You try your best. The Noble Eightfold Path, I just want to go back about keeping the heart open and choosing wisely and things. We were talking about, just to remind you, they can be divided into different ways, but I had divided, and this is basically the Buddha got enlightened, and then these are some 8 ways to conduct yourself. And I had divided them into what's called the 3 higher trainings, the 3 higher trainings that get you to be a Buddha, okay? Starting with good morality, good ethics, okay? And this is where we started with right speech. Right speech is an ethical practice. You're abstaining from telling lies, meaning you're speaking honestly to people, truthful. You're abstaining from divisive speech, backbiting, and saying words that bring division to people and hatred and enmity and things like that, disunity, disharmony, okay? You're abstaining from harsh and rude speech, yelling at people, abusive language to people, and you're abstaining from meaningless, idle chatter, like that. So you're getting clean with your speech, which sets up a nice stability for your mind. And we all know we lose it through our mouth a lot. Those of you that are talkers or, little barbs to people, sometimes it's unnecessary. So it's really nice to start working on the speech. The next one that comes along, and there's 3 that are listed under, that would be listed under the ethical conduct. Right action is the next one. Right action, okay? Right action aims at promoting moral, honorable, peaceful conduct. So moral, honorable, peaceful conduct. It admonishes us that that we want to abstain from destroying life, harming others, from stealing, from having, cheating people, from having bad relationships with people, cheating on people like that. And that you basically want to help others as much as you can. And you set an example of yourself, that you're leading a peaceful, honorable life in the right way. I'm not going to force it on others. I'm not going to tell them how great I am. I'm just going to be that person that's practicing right action, right action. So we're setting ourselves up to have the right space of mind to realize emptiness, because the 3 higher trainings, again, start with ethical conduct, number 1. Number 2, concentration. Once I have the balanced, good ethics to live on, I can develop concentration because my mind is not agitated and returning and ruminating through the stuff I messed up because I cheated that person, because I lied to that person, because I killed all these insects, whatever the thing is. So my mind can be peaceful. And from that, I can develop concentration, meditative absorption, like that, samadhi in Sanskrit, shine in Tibetan, which is calm abiding, okay? And then I need the concentration to get the wisdom. That's the 3rd higher training, the wisdom realizing emptiness. The wisdom realizing emptiness. Okay, so 3 higher trainings: ethical conduct, concentration, wisdom. So we're talking about right now, if you can work this week on right action, meaning, and here's right action, everyday life. How are you driving? Right action? You driving like a maniac, cutting people off, not signaling when you get in, going up in the other lane and then jumping in right at the last minute, pretending you were going to exit there, but you really knew you weren't going to. That's not really right action. You know, how does it feel to drive that way? And then how does it, you know, like a maniac? And how does it feel to drive more compassionately, thinking about them on the road? You know, you're taking the subway. Sometimes there's a crush on the subway. But I don't know if they still have kind of rush hour in Manhattan or whether it's kind of subsided because everybody works at home. Okay. But just generally, you're in a store. What's it like when, you know, I was thinking in Manhattan the first time, some of you will laugh. When I moved back to the East Coast and then I ended up in Manhattan and there was a Trader Joe's. It was just like 2007, I'm guessing, something around there. I was visiting 2008. And there was a Trader Joe's and I went and I was like, oh yeah, Trader Joe's, but I need to get some vitamins or something. I went in and I had got my vitamins in my hand. And then I saw the line, right? Some of you know, well, the line was like around the whole store, inside the store. They had somebody that stood at the end, this is the, with a sign that said, this is the end of the line. And it was miles from the cashiers. And I'm like, you know, here I was living in suburbia. So when I checked out, I just went right to the cashier and I just bought my vitamins. And I looked at this and I was like, I'm not going to wait in that line, right? But once I understood the system, the line went really fast because they had many cashiers. It was all very organized, and it, you know, it did take a while, but it was much faster. So I was just thinking, let's say you're participating in something like that. A lot of us are in things like that. How do you want to be in line? How do you want to be with the people in the stores helping? How do you want to be with your co-workers you're working, with people you meet in a restaurant? How do you treat your server in a restaurant? You know, how do you show up for them? Right? Are you like, you know, I need this, I need more water, I need, oh, you know. So there's a person there, and you know, that could be you doing that job. So think about, what's that experience like for them? Do we ever think of what's that experience like for them? That. So you can always have a really positive engagement with them. And it turns, like Jane was just saying, turns the whole situation around. Okay, and it can turn you from a bad mood into a positive experience, a positive mood that you're having, like that. So it's something to think about. So a great engagement for this week. I have to make some notes so I can remind you. So this is right action we're going to work on. And get creative. You know, I'm just giving a few examples, but you have many examples in your own life of, you know, can you really work on right action? How do you want to use it in your week this week? With and actually our next class, I just want to double check when, because next week is Valentine's Day. We don't have a class. Is that right, Sunny?
Yes, February 21st.
Okay, so we've got two, we're going to skip, we meet in 2 weeks. So just to remind you, we meet in 2 weeks, and I hope you have a happy Valentine's Day as well. It's all about love, not attachment. Okay, not attachment. And so what is love? Anybody, what is love? We've had classes like this before. Go for it. Unmute. What is love to you? What's really the essence of love?
Desire for the other person to be happy.
Yes, you want the other person to be happy. It's the wish that they be happy. The wish that they be happy. You know, it's not always the way we think about love, is it? You know, don't we like, I love you, but, I love you when, I love you if, like we have conditions. That's attachment. That's attachment. And a lot of our love is mixed with attachment. It's natural. It's natural for human beings. A lot of our love is mixed with attachment. It's very normal. So just notice that. And if you really want to celebrate Valentine's Day, think about the bigger heart, coming from the bigger heart of what can you do for all living beings that day? What can you know, every being that you encounter, can you have a loving experience with them? You know, it doesn't even mean you need to talk to the person, but can you just have a, you know, and notice, this is another thing I notice a lot about my mind is when people talk about racism and prejudiced, you know, people say, oh, somebody was prejudiced, you know, they're biased, they're racist and things. So prejudice Think of the word prejudice, okay? We all prejudge. It's really hard not to prejudge. But I've noticed in my own mind how whether I'm walking down the street and I see somebody, whether they're rich, poor, fat, thin, a certain color, this, what kind of clothes they have on, what kind of car they drive, and I'll notice I'm putting it all together and prejudging. You know, I had this sweeping prejudgment the other day. Like, our parking lot's a bit challenged here. If you have a really big car, there's only certain places you can park because it'll stick out too far for people to get by. And somebody turned up with this car. I've never seen a normal car this big. And it was white, so it looked bigger. I don't know what all I can think of on the title of it was Wagoneer. I've never seen a car like this. It's a massive kind of tank-like car called a Wagoneer. And you know, it was huge, and I'm just like, I hope they're in the life-saving vocation, that's what they're using the vehicle for, and not just driving two people around because they want to be in a big white car with global warming. You know, it was really a little alarming. It was a huge SUV, like one of the biggest I've ever seen, like that. And they were parked and they were jutting out, so it was really hard for cars to get by them. And so again, I had a judgment, you know, of like, oh, do they have to drive a car like that? When I have no idea what they're doing with the car. So let's just watch these next couple weeks of, can I have a gentler engagement with these people? That I actually really wanted to meet them because I just thought it'd be interesting to meet, you know, but I'm sure there are people I probably would have really liked, could have been, you know. And I love getting kind of slapped down a little bit where I have a judgment like that, and then I find out the person is engaged in life-saving things, and that's why they have a vehicle like that, and it's loaded with, that happened to me once, and I was, you know, like, wah, wah, I'm wrong. So it's really nice to think about these couple weeks engaging with people with as much spaciousness of heart as you can, as much spaciousness of heart, and really reminding yourself about it, and watch the prejudgment. Like, I'll just watch sometimes and go, well, that was really a big sweeping judgment you just had on that person, but you really don't know anything about them. You know, so just kind of backing it up a little bit and kind of considering. Yeah, so that's my gentleness with myself. You know, is it right there as it's happening? I'm walking toward them, and then I'll be like, no, here's a, you know, suffering sentient being just like me who has Buddha nature. Like, you know, somebody, you know, who wants to be happy, doesn't want to suffer, just like me. Great, engaging. So just trying to find that raw experience of human to human. We're both muddling through, we're doing the best we can, trying to be kind, and I can show people kindness. And here's the other thing. So, and I want to talk, I'll certainly talk more about this next week, emptiness. I want to talk more about emptiness. Even though it comes later in the Noble Eightfold Path, I really want you to start thinking more and more along this line. Some of you have studied this for a long time. Some of you are newer. So with emptiness, it really disengages me from holding this very concrete, solid, what I think is truth about the other person, as well as about myself. You know, it releases me from that hold of the solidity, that I see somebody only in this way. And so even when I said the concepts of stress, anxiety, depression, right? We come up with the word like that, okay? And then we give the word a lot of weight. And when there's weightier words in your mind, they take up more space in your mind, and that's where the rumination starts. So one word is stress and another word is joy. Why don't I give joy as much time and as much space and weight as stress? You can, it's just about practice. It's just about orienting my mind, noting the stressful moment, noting the aversion coming up, noting the attachment coming up, looking at that. And here's, you know, a counter to attachment. You know, you were attached to our kids. I think that's what we're most attached to. Family members, dear family members, close friends, very attached to. Then you get to the second tier of your stuff. Maybe there's some stuff you're attached to, like that. So, but mostly it's people, right? So I'll watch attachment come up, Oh, I'm missing my niece this week, or I'm missing my brother, or missing this, or my sister or something, missing this family member, and just watching that, and then here comes the circle. I'm so glad that I have a niece like that, or a brother like that, or a sister like that. Like, I'm so fortunate. Isn't it great? I have somebody like that. So instead of staying with the, instead of staying with the hostility, he's such a jerk, and he's a really good art editor. So there's always a reframing. There's always another positive. So it's something about reframe this week. Reframe to the positive as much as you can. Can you do it? Again, you have to sit with it sometimes on your cushion to get the positive thoughts about somebody you're struggling with activated. So I mentioned before, some of you have heard the story of me and the art director at the magazine, very intimidated by him. He was yelling at people. How I had to sit on my cushion thinking about him, a little scared and like, oh, I don't want to do this project with him. I'm very stressed. What am I going to, but letting that sift, letting those thoughts go, not hanging on to them, watching them and then going, okay, now what? Does he have any good qualities? Can you allow yourself to think of any good qualities he has? And then motoring my mind through that, really holding my mind, that's the fixation. Now we're going to focus on the good qualities. And he had many. So I'm going to list them on my meditation cushion again, and I'm going to list them again and again. And then I'm going to make a deal with myself. When you go in tomorrow, you are going to focus on those good qualities as much as you can. And then I go in, have a little meeting with him, be scared, note all those feelings, but focus on the good qualities, and then the next day I'm going to do it again, come back in again, feeling a little more comfortable with the discomfort, right? Am I making sense? We communicating? A little more comfortable with the discomfort. I come in, see him again. And then maybe the third time I engage with him, now I feel comfortable enough to sincerely compliment that he looks really good in that shirt. And it's genuine and he knows it. And now I've got his attention. He's like, oh, thanks. Oh, great. Now he knows he gets positive feedback from me and he likes that. So now the fourth time I come in, he's looking forward to me coming in and meeting with me. He likes Amy now because Amy gives him positive feedback, but it's genuine feedback. I'm not lying to him. So this is slowly how we work on those relationships with aversion and then with attachment, trying to lessen, like realizing people move away, people die, people don't always want to be with you. They don't always want to live near you. That's reality. That's life, But when I can be with them, if there's a chance, how wonderful that would be if I enjoy that. But I'm not going to pressure them. If they don't want to see me, it's the best I can do. Maybe they don't want to spend that much time. I notice now, this is so cute. When I was younger, when I was a teenager, when I was in my 20s, 30s, I would be visiting my parents and my mom was really clingy to the kids. My father liked it as well, but my mother really, this was her purpose for being. And she was a great mom and they were great parents. And so I'd come in and sometimes as soon as I came into the house, she right away was asking me, could I stay another day? Like I just arrived. But it was always became this kind of tape, this recording she'd start, and I found it kind of annoying. And it would get, and I'm like, oh, can we just have the visit and not, But so what I notice now is I was visiting my sister recently, and her boys came in to stay with her for Christmas for a few days. They live not that far from her, but Christmas was the time they wanted to come in, and they have their certain rituals at Mom's for Christmas, and I was there, and I was looking forward to it. And so they came, and then the thing is, they don't stay that long. They stay maybe a couple of days, and they have girlfriends, and they want to go off, and they have their own flats and do their own thing, just like I did. So I see the whole process, and I could see her clinging a bit and saying, "Oh, you're only going to stay till Friday?" Like I thought you. And suddenly I'm like, and I noticed at one point I had a little thought of, "Oh, I thought we were going to have time to do that," and so he's going to go off with his friends. There's, and having that little bit of thought, and then I just laughed, I'm just like, I'm just like my mother. It's just a natural, so, but watching the clinging, and then I didn't act from there. I just said, okay, well, let me know when you're free. Send me a message when you're free, and then we'll figure out a time to get together and get, granted, I'm not the mom, it was different, but my sister and I had a kind of joke about that. I'm just like, and she said to me, she goes, I'm just like mom, and I said, well, it's a good thing to look at, isn't it? Like that. So it's so funny how the tables turn at times, and you get a sense of what the clinging's like, of, the pulling, when I felt pulled on, and then it would make me pull away. I'm going to come in later. I'm going to come in a day later. There's like that. And so it helps me to learn to release, because I know what that felt like, being pulled on. I don't know if that's helpful. Are there any questions, comments right now? And so one thing I wanted to also mention before we close is I want to talk a little bit about emptiness, because we have to really, the biggest thing that helps us choose kindness and grow empathy and compassion is understanding the way we view reality and the way everybody does as ordinary human beings. So as ordinary human beings, I'm talking about people that don't have a direct perception of emptiness or the nature of reality. That's what I'm talking about. So let me explain a little bit, and I'm going to go through this with each session, as well as some other practical examples, okay? Is when I say that things are empty of something, okay, what I mean, according to Tibetan Buddhism, is they lack something called inherent nature or inherent existence. Okay, we're not used to what inherent existence is. We don't really know that. So let me give you synonyms for inherent existence. Excuse me. Concrete existence. Solidification or concretization, making something concrete. Okay, things existing from their own side, existing with their own nature. So reification's another word. We reify everything, making it concrete, solid, unchanging, permanent. Nothing exists that way. Nothing exists that way. But what happens is, due to fundamental ignorance that has been in our mind since time without a beginning. Buddhism says there's no beginning to your mind. It's simply a stream of thoughts, experiences, ideas, feelings, perceptions. One moment's creating the next moment. That moment's creating the next moment. This moment is preceded by a moment that caused it. And that moment before it is preceded by another moment before it that caused it. If you want to find the first moment, Buddhism will say there's a moment before that caused it. There will always be a preceding moment, and there will always be a subsequent result. There's no beginning or end to your mind. So this is hard for linear thinkers. As a human being, which means an ordinary being, and to give you some more terminology, meaning someone that is not an Arya being, A-R-Y-A, an Arya being. An Arya being is one who's seen the truth, who's seen the truth. They're noble beings. It's basically what Arya means, okay? What they mean is they've seen the truth directly. They've seen emptiness directly. They've done it in meditation, okay? And so basically, what we're looking at and what we start poking, and before we learn how to meditate on emptiness, before we've studied a lot of emptiness, is just to keep poking that concrete nature you get going, which comes up. I lost my phone. Somebody dinged my car. They stole my cup. They broke into my house. They threatened me and my kid, people will say. My kid. Like there's this huge solidified glom you've just put on the reality that doesn't exist at all. Doesn't exist. So this is something unique to Tibetan Buddhism I haven't found in any other spirituality. There's things that touch on it, but this concept of a lack of inherent nature really separates Buddhism. And this is wisdom. This is called cultivating wisdom. The wisdom realizing emptiness. So things are empty of that inherent nature. They lack that. They're absent of having that. So what I'd like you to do in the next couple of weeks is, if you can track, and there's a fair amount of exercises I've talked about that I'll try to remind you, is to notice when you're very, very tweaked in the next couple of weeks. You're very angry at someone, let's say. You're very upset about something, or fearful about something, or amazingly attached to something. Notice the sense of yourself that gets activated. Because in emptiness, you're refuting that. Because that strong sense of yourself that you're feeling, and you may feel it in your body, you may get a gripping in your throat, tightening in your heart, you may get a stomach ache, right? It does manifest in the body, because the most subtle mind is mounted on the most subtle wind that is what creates your body. And they're located heart center. It's located, according to Tibetan Buddhist system, the heart center. Okay. So you will feel it somewhere. And if you feel it, then in emptiness meditation, you go and you look for that I, the sense of yourself, the letter I, not the organ, the I, like that. But you're going to go look for it in emptiness meditation. We'll do the meditation later in the course, emptiness meditation. If you want to access that now, there's a wonderful book called How to Meditate that was written by Kathleen McDonald. She's our longest term nun in our tradition. She's a dear friend of mine, Kathleen McDonald, How to Meditate, because I'm sure there's many How to Meditate books by different authors. You can find it on Amazon. And there's a wonderful emptiness meditation, super easy to follow in that book. I highly recommend it. Analyzing, like, notice when you'll be suddenly like, I'm hungry. Notice how that I gets activated, when actually what's going on is your stomach is empty. But no, I'm hungry. You know, the temperature drops and you're outside, I'm cold. Notice the investment in the I'm cold. Well, it's just that there's a cool temperature on your skin. That's what's going on. Let's deflect. Let's take the drama down a little bit. Okay. This is the source of your happiness. And what happens is when you realize how wrong we've gotten it, just due to fundamental ignorance, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just, we're ordinary beings. This is the way we see things. We basically misknow reality, K-N-O-W. We misknow reality. Thank you, Sunny. She just posted the link in the chat to How to Meditate. Thank you so much. So we misknow, we have a wrong engagement with our reality, and that's what causes us to suffer. So when you realize that, and then when you realize because of that, and some people have a greater misengagement, like Vladimir Putin, okay? Huge engagement, huge veils of obscuration around his Buddha nature, right? I still think he's fundamentally good, just obviously quite mistaken on certain levels. When you realize that and how mistaken murderers are and terrorists are and people that murder people, and because they're so far away from understanding that they're totally misengaged with this concrete reality. And as a result of that, they cause tremendous harm. How can we not have compassion? Talk about people completely lost. How can you not have compassion? Right? So it helps grow the compassion when you realize how wrong we all have it, right? First, I'm going to deal with my own mind and realize, look at the mistakes I make on my little baby level of, and I make a lot of mistakes, but on my level, I'm probably harming, few people. I'm hoping to harm as few people as possible, really. But sometimes you harm somebody, you annoy somebody, you say the wrong thing to them, whatever you do, that you send the wrong email, whatever it is, you didn't intend, but on that level. So I'm looking at my own mind and realizing, wow, and noticing when that very strong sense of myself gets engaged. Please look at it in the next couple of weeks. Look how it maneuvers you, manipulates you. Look how it causes you problems. Well, what about everybody else? How lost they are. What about people who have no spiritual path? What about people on power trips that are running countries and things? Look at the harm they can do. How can we not have? Because if you want to have hatred for Putin and you want to hate like that, it just keeps you in a vice, keeps your heart and mind locked up. He doesn't know that it doesn't do anything. It just sends ripples of aversion out into the planet. So if I can kind of think like, wow, what a suffering being that he needed to invade. He needed to put all his soldiers in harm's way to invade another country and cause harm there. Why? For what? For what reason? for power, right? Misguided part of his ego that just karmic situation, very sad. But I can have compassion for him and think of what are the suffering he's causing himself, his future rebirths, like that. So do your best with that. Do your best through this week. Try for the next 2 weeks, and I'll send some exercises through Sunny, and just try your best. So I'm going to stop there. And thank you so much again for being present, for showing up here. And let's dedicate the merit, whatever positive energy we've created, let's dedicate it for us trying to, as gently, as happily, as joyfully do these exercises as we can. See what works for you. If you find one that's working well, do that one more. If you don't understand one, come back to it. And try to just gently ease yourself into that practice. Inhalation, exhalation. Look at mindfulness sometimes. It's just, today's not working. Okay, tomorrow's different. Tomorrow's different, right? This is suffering. This is the nature of reality. And there's a lot of joy on the planet too. There's a lot of wonderful things on the planet. Appreciate that. Your own goodness, your own good setup, right? And let's dedicate it so we can have more of that and really have a bigger heart to embrace all the suffering on the planet, helping us move along this path to enlightenment so we can be of the most benefit to all living beings. I'd like to dedicate for the war in Ukraine to end immediately, for all the people that can be saved in the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, may they be found immediately and rescued. May there be many, 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 many survivors who do well and that they can rebuild as quickly as possible. And all those problems in the world, may they be diminished as we improve our own mental capacity to create a healthier planet overall. Thank you so much. And I know in the next Losar, which is Tibetan New Year, February 21st, it's coming up. And see what, I think the center has some plans, Shanti Deva Center, a lot of centers do. And so please look at their wonderful programs that they've got going. Land of Medicine Buddha has a lot of programs as well going on, a lot of other centers. Feel free, whatever you'd like to jump in. And hope to see all of you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Venerable Amy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.